All right, so let me call the meeting to order, please. Thank you all for being here. And thank you all for your time and being online as well. We got a lot to cover today, and so let me start off by reading the statement for some reason. The primary objective of the CAC's to ensure the capital maintenance and public transportation projects and programs approved by the PPRTA voters at the November 2nd, 2004, November 6th, 2012, and November 7th, 2017, and November 8th, 2022 ballot measures are accomplished with RTA fund. This committee reports to the board of directors. All right, we got our official stuff. Okay, so we have a quorum, and right now everybody can vote. If we get some other people coming on, I think, who's Tony on the bubble?
Tony's at risk. Steve Murray.
Okay. So what I would like to start off, please, by taking a moment to.
I'm just about to share that I've got a hard stop at 3 p.m. So
Okay.
Apologies in advance if that changes, or if I need to be online remotely, I can do that. I just got to drive to a 3:30 meeting.
Okay, thank you. I'd like to start just by acknowledging, and I know everybody's heard about it, but we lost Richard Robinson recently. And so I wanted to just, he sent out, Rick sent out a copy of the brochure that at the funeral that had his work history and qualifications and this kind of stuff. And we knew Richard as someone that always had an opinion about something. But you read this and you understand why, because he's had a lot of really interesting jobs and well qualified for this group. So I would just like to ask everyone to take a moment of silence and in your own way recognize Richard, and he will get his hard hat issued to him at the board meeting next week, or to his wife, I should say, next week. So if anybody wants to come to that, you're welcome to come to it. So let's just take a moment of silence for Richard, please. Okay, great, thank you. All right, so do I have a motion to approve the agenda as published? So move, Rick. Anybody second? Second, thanks,
David.
Dave. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, great, thank you. The minutes of the meeting, oh, wait a minute, hold on. Public comment for anything not on the agenda. Anybody in the audience or on the thing have any comments? I guess what I just did was not on the agenda, right? Okay, approval of the minutes for the October 4th meeting. I didn't see anything. Anybody have any changes? I have a motion to approve. Approve, Rick. Anybody, a second, please?
Second.
All right, Carlos, thank you. Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you very much. All right, financial reports, Miss Lisa.
Actual sales and use tax receipts was $13,702,788, which was above our monthly budget by $219,123, or 1.6%. When we look at August of this year compared to August of last year, we collected $338,746 less than we did last year. So that's a negative 2.4%. Overall, for the year to date, we are still over budget by 2.3 million. And as we had talked about last month, August, we were thinking was going to be a split month. So earlier in the month, we did have pretty good collections, and then it slowed down, probably because of school.
Okay. I'm glad to see the trends is at least in between the 2 years and not dropping down below them so that.
Right.
So, any questions for Lisa on the financials? Anybody online? All right, not seeing any. We'll move on. Next item. Get my stuff together. 24 budget, presentation. So what I'd like to do, is ask we'll let Rick introduce, or Lisa introduce it. And then, Lisa, I think what I would like to do would be to have, the member governments just do a highlight of their budgets. I feel like that we owe the public an in-depth, a little bit more in-depth, than just a piece of paper. And I just asked them to just cover the highlights of your budget, any challenges you had or any surprises or things you couldn't do or something like that. And you don't have to cover every line item. So is that all right with you?
Sure.
Okay, well, go ahead.
Okay, so the overall budget would be essentially 156 million, and that's with 150 million being sales and use tax and 6 million for interest. What's included in the packet is factoring in Fountain, assuming Fountain is joining. So they would be maintenance only. If for some reason that doesn't work out, then it would just be a reallocation of more maintenance funds to the member governments. So that's already factored in. And then for the admin budget, the amount went up, but it's still at 0.52% of our allowable 1% of the overall budget. And typically we don't expend all of that in the year.
Okay. Excuse me. So who's first in here? Gail, you want to go over yours? Or you want me to come back to you?
I would be happy to. Gail Sturdivant with the City of Colorado Springs. The 2024 PPRTA proposed budget for the city includes three components. The capital budget for the city would be, our portion would be 60,384,000. The maintenance portion would be 36,203,728. And the transit budget would be $15,494,060. The highlights for projects, and I'm going to hit transit and maintenance first, and then talk a little bit more about the capital projects. For our maintenance, we'll continue to operate the maintenance programs as we do today, really with a variety of different roadway maintenance activities, traffic maintenance activities, bridge maintenance, and maintenance to other structures that are in the right of way, really to preserve the transportation assets within our public right of way. The transit budget, which there's more detail included in your packet, but in general can be broken up into grant match support for the services that we provide or the routes that we provide and the service on those routes, whether it be fixed service or paratransit, and then operating costs for that operation. For the capital, really what you're seeing proposed in our budget is what we've been showing in the city's capital improvement program for some time. But to give you an overview, we'll be have $1 million for the 8th Street project, which is an A-list project. $13.3 million on the South Academy project between Fountain and Milton Proby Parkway. Roughly $9.6 million for the Circle Drive Bridge project. And both the Circle Drive Bridge project and the Academy project, we actually have bid costs on that. So that's really intended to get us through the end of those projects and then project contingency we're carrying. The I-25 Nevada Tejon Corridor Improvements Project is $7.6 million. The Las Vegas Royer project is $2 million. The South Cheyenne Canyon Bridge replacement is $831,000. And we do have bid prices, if you recall on that. I brought that last month. So that includes what we need for the bidding, engineering services, doing construction, and some project contingency. And we have the Union Pacific Railroad over Fontanero at $18.8 million. And we have the UPRR over Tejon, Nevada at $1 million. I also will mention for the capital programs, we did continue to maintain our baseline budgets as presented. So that's really the overview. I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have. And it looks like Tony has a question.
Tony?
Yes, Gail, I'm curious with the couple derailments we've seen from the railroad over the past couple months here, or past month rather. What are they doing for their improvements? Because I see we have a couple for, railroad crossing things and that kind of stuff coming up in the next year. What kind of money are they kicking in for their own, failures?
Okay, so just anecdotally related to the two derailments, none of them had to do with crossings. Even though
Okay.
there was a bridge that failed over CDOT, that was a derailment that ended up hitting a bridge and taking that out. But that is really kind of a side point, really focusing on what the city has. The crossings the city has in most, if not all cases,
Thanks.
are actually city responsibility as
Okay.
opposed to a railroad responsibility. I think we've talked about this before, that this railroad in general is more the senior right. And when the roads went in, that there's some kind of historic licensing agreement or crossing agreement. Today, we call them construction and maintenance agreements that sit in perpetuity, that shows who has responsibilities for the structure and who has responsibilities for the road. So in general, we have responsibility for all those crossings within the city. The ones I mentioned, one of them is actually at grade, the one at Royer in Las Vegas. The other two are rail bridges. I will say too, even though it is our responsibility because we haven't gotten to it, that BNSF Railways is going to likely replace the bridge over Tejon Street in its current location and not really accommodate any other things we would like to see done with that project, but they will likely be coming and doing that more because of operational concerns on their part. So that's the only time we're really getting them to kick in money, Tony, if they really can't do business if the structure doesn't work.
We sure pay them a whole lot for consulting fees.
We do, and you'll see, we have a C&M settlement on our contract list today.
Yeah. So on the Tejon Bridge, when you say nothing, so they're not going to increase the height or the width?
No, they are by the design, the height doesn't change, but the vertical clearance, so their bridge section will be skinnier, for lack of a better way. We will gain 1 foot 7 inches in additional vertical clearance. So that does help with one of the many problems down in that particular crossing location. And we will gain about 7 feet horizontally in clearance. We were actually looking at options, the way they're putting in these new abutments for this placement bridge. We may be able to go back and do some modifications and gain some additional horizontal distance, but we're still looking at that as one of the options for that project.
So we've got money allocated for the design of those, and if they come in, is there any way that we can add to their specifications or their design to get done a little bit of what we want?
In general, no, other than getting those additional horizontal and vertical clearances we discussed.
Okay.
Is that new one going to have it without the center hole there posted in the
The
middle?
piers, no, the piers will still be there.
In the
They
middle?
will- Yes,
Thank you.
I actually just learned that with the bridge configuration as well, so.
Carlos?
Yeah, Carlos Perez. Yeah, this is actually just a very small piece of the budget, but this is the school and neighborhood pedestrian improvements program. We've been flat at $412,000, a very tiny program, but I was wondering if there's any discussions within traffic engineering to increase that in light of our improvements in school zones. We want to,
Yeah,
address some of the safety issues within school zones, and this has been flat, and I'm just wondering
Yeah.
if that conversation has come up.
so I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the city budget.
Yeah.
And then PPRT budget. I will say the two items you see in the programs, the pedestrian transportation improvements phase 1, which for 24 would be 687,000. And the school and neighborhood pedestrian programs, 1,200 or 412,000. We actually combine those. So we have a $1.1 million missing sidewalk program. In fact, in RTA 3, we just call it the sidewalk infill program. And that's really focused on sidewalks, not necessarily with the school safety issues that we've been talking about. I will say in the city's budget, we actually are increasing funding to the school safety crossing program, and there will be an additional 250,000 added to that in addition to the 600,000 baseline for that. And we're intending with that additional funds to go and address 21 schools, primarily high schools and middle schools that currently don't have crossings. They hit 26 streets, and I think it ended up being like 78. I'm not remembering the exact single number, but it's a lot more signalization and lights and different improvements for school safety programs.
Mr. Chair, just, to follow up, no, that did answer my question. You are having that conversation. I did realize that the city had put in $250,000 for school zone safety. You know, this calls out specifically this line item. It says school and neighborhood. And I'm just curious, this is 412, has not changed, since for a long time, but, I'll definitely support it, but I think next year, let's kind of be creative in making sure that our school zone safety programs are adequately funded. Todd Frisbee has gone on record, I think he went before the media, that really it's a funding challenge that in our school zones.
Right.
And I want to ensure, as a citizen here and representing, talking to students and teachers, parents, all that let's make sure that is not a blocking factor, that funding is not going to be an issue when it comes to school zone safety. So I'm a very strong supporter of this. I'll support this, but let's start thinking about how we can improve upon this.
Okay. And can I just point of clarification? This is not for school zones, period. This is for missing sidewalks. One, two, your message is heard. I mean, that's been a priority across the city. I had something else I wanted to mention to you that was actually important. Oh, the budget, the way the budget is set, when we set out a program, we actually set out this program 10 years ago, and we did not show any escalation over the programs, really to make sure we have a commitment to delivering the named A-list projects. So when we set our 25 budget under PPRTA 3, you will see what that baseline is really intended to be going through that. And it is higher. I know I've already done the first pass on it.
You got to come, Dave?
A quick question, and again, Gail, great work on the budget to everybody involved, and this is a huge amount of work, and I like almost everything I see. The one thing that I don't see, or I don't know that I see, is a question I raised, speaking of Mr. Frisbee back, I think he spoke to us 6 or so months ago, maybe it was March or April, is traffic signal coordination is one of my maybe personal initiatives, and I may have asked a question about South Academy and interjurisdictional coordination
But
on.
I've heard it was fixed,
So
is what
it's-
they tell me.
If it is, boy, I'd love a little note to that effect. I just drove it to get here and hit 3 red lights in 300 yards. That's just the one dot on the curve. That was today. If they're working, then I'm going counterflow. I'm going eastbound or the westbound lane or something. So, but I'd love to hear if you need money for that project for interagency traffic signal coordination, I'd like to encourage that we bump the number
Right.
from 0 up to something.
Right, and we typically use as in the program monies that they will do that. I will mention also a city budget item, and one of the things that will help. I thought they really did report to me that was coordinated all the signals in there because it's 3 different jurisdictions, but apparently it's not working. I will follow up on
Thank
that.
you.
But one of the things the city is doing, we intend to enter into an intergovernmental agreement with El Paso County to take on the operation and maintenance of the 55 signals that the county owns. So that's going to be a new change in 2024. We already have some of the signals that are owned by CDOT that we operate and maintain for them. So having one entity involved in that area could help facilitate it if they didn't really get it fixed. Dave, sorry.
Thank you.
I know you have brought this up at least 6 times that I'm aware of. So,
I like to count years, beers, and times I bring this up. It's once, maybe twice.
okay. Perfect.
It's like years and beers. I've had 1 or 2.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
I had a couple of questions.
And
One,
it looks like Ed has.
Oh, I'm sorry,
I
Ed.
just want to make sure you saw
Ed,
that.
go ahead. I'm sorry, I didn't see your hand.
Oh, okay. Going back to the school issue, I was on another board and I've heard the mention of Safe School Program. Is that additional money that the schools have to apply for? or is it something that the city can do in conjunction with the school to increase our revenue?
So I suspect you're talking about the safe school, I was gonna say safe routes to school. The city typically does not
Yes.
apply for those funds, somewhat more intentionally because they tend to increase the cost of whatever effort you're gonna do by 25 to 50%. And a lot of times there's not really the bang for the buck to go and do that. We tend to do any of the collaboration with the schools jointly with local funds. When I say jointly, it's more collaboration. Most often the schools do not bring money to the table net. Sometimes if they do, it would really be improvements that would coordinate with our improvements on the school property, not necessarily in that space between the school property and the public right of way.
Okay, I
And then-
appreciate the clarification.
Thanks.
Okay, I just had a couple of quick questions. Two of them are observations. I appreciate Rick for pointing this out. I was going to talk about intersection improvements and roadway safety and traffic ops. A large carryover there, and a 12.3 and about 11 million. And I was assuming that part of that had to do with some Mark Shuffle money there, because I know you were doing part of the Mark Shuffle upgrade, and then Rick just pointed out at the bottom, you've got it footnoted down there, so.
Yes, that is correct. Those are funds that are planned for Mark Shuffle. They just haven't been encumbered yet. I take that back. They actually have been encumbered. They haven't been spent. So carryover from PPRTA is actual dollars available in the bank.
Okay,
But we plan to spend all those monies on Mark Shuffle in 24.
okay. And then we were talking about the traffic system upgrade, 60 locations for 500,000.
That is actually the carryover. So that's got to remember where this is the 10th year of a 10-year program. And we had funding that dropped off. I have to go back and look. I think it started reducing in 22 and there was no funding in 23, but we actually had a taper plan for that. So this is the remaining funds to hit the work on those 60 locations.
Yeah, okay, thank you. All right, any other questions for Gail on the cities? Thanks for that overview, Gail.
You're welcome. My pleasure.
I do have one.
Okay, Larry.
Gail, did you say that you've got working on an IGA that you'll take over all the traffic signals that are now maintained by El Paso County?
There are 55 signals identified that are in the urban area that we would take over operation and maintenance from the county.
So
Now,
that's
with
a,
that-
Pending finalization of this IGA.
that's a number, not the word all.
Yeah.
It's not all, it's a number.
Okay, all right.
So like, for example, Meridian Road, would that include the signals on Meridian Road?
You think so?
I believe so. I can pull up the IGA, but there are a few exclusions. Some of our very rural signals are not included.
The reason I bring up Meridian Road is sort of following up with Dave's comment on his driving this morning. Coming in, I hit 3 out of the 7 signals along Meridian Road before I even got to Woodman Road. So hopefully that IGA will include some coordination on those signals, like for example, along Meridian.
Well, it would be intended to look at improving our overall signal operation. You know, we'll be able to pull those into our system and to time those better. But it's not necessarily a PPRTA function. It's really more of a global function of traffic operations.
But if it will help traffic movement, it will be, very good for PPRTA and also
Yes,
the people that are, using those roads, not only in the city, but in the county.
yes, absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Who wants to go next? You want to wait for a few minutes or you want to go ahead?
I can go first.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good afternoon, Jeff Manchester, El Paso County. Just touching on a few budget highlights from our end. Our total capital program for 2024 is just north of 24 million. Also, our maintenance is going to be around 15 million. Just highlighting some of the activities that we are continuing with maintenance. We'll continue to do our concrete work, our prep to paves, a lot of our paving, including overlay, slurry, microsurfacing, chip seals, gravel road. Just wanted to highlight something from 2023. We had a lot of success with rolling out our new pavement preservation program, which includes slurry seals, microsurfacing. We were doing cape seals. We've observed that that's had a very big impact on our pavement condition index. We just completed our latest paving survey. So we'll definitely continue on with that multi-year effort coming into 2024. Highlighting some of our capital program projects. The biggest allocation and also the biggest carryover is going to be to continue to fund South Academy. And that's from around Milton Proby down to trying to blank Vinatucci, excuse me. And then the second biggest allocation we have in our program is for Beacon Light Road. We've been kind of faced with some challenges on the Beacon Light Road project with property acquisition. We were abutting up against a conservation easement with Douglas County that we're still trying to get through that process of acquiring that sliver take. And with that really sums up kind of our budget program for 2024.
Okay. Any questions for the county? Not seeing any.
Oh, I do have one.
Oh, all right, go ahead.
Jeff, I'd just like to make comment, your maintenance program of sealing cracks on roads, I think has been very beneficial. In a lot of them, I've driven Latigo Boulevard, Meridian. It really has made a difference. I haven't seen when we have a storm, like for example, this past snowstorm and rain in that, you don't see the infiltration of that moisture into the road because they've been sealed. So yes, I encourage you and the county to continue that program and keep it on track. Coming in, I noticed on Platte Avenue, the city, their contractor was also doing sealing crack work just west of, was it west? Yeah, west of Circle. And so that was good because again, that section of road, you see quite a bit of cracking, but if they're sealing it, it will help maintain that road, both from a county standpoint and the city standpoint for a period of a lot longer than what it would be without that sealing.
Okay, any other comments or questions? All right, great. Manitou. Dole, you got any comments or anything? Okay, any questions or comments on Manitou's budget? Okay. Looking forward to getting that parking lot around those really nice car chargers better. Now to meet Green Mountain Falls. Anybody got any questions? Anybody from Green? Any questions on Green Mountain Falls budget? Anybody? Okay. Cindy on anything about Rama or Callahan? Don't see her. Any questions for their spending their money? They don't spend it all in one place.
I did want to say that we already finished the project we got approval for last month. So that was awesome and thank you. And we're going to try and do more of that.
All right. Good. All right. Rama, Green Mountain Falls, Callahan, Manitou Springs. All right. Any other comments or questions on the budget that we need to include as we pass this on to the board? Not seeing any, so I guess we could say good job, everybody. So do I hear a motion to make a recommendation that we to the board that we make a recommendation to approve the budget as we reviewed? Dave? Okay. Anybody second? All right, Rick Hoover. Okay, thank you, Karen. Thanks, Rick. Oh, by the way, Tony. You can't vote. So don't say aye.
What, how do you know I was gonna say aye?
Well, I'm just making the assumption.
I'm kidding. Okay, thank you.
Don't say nay either. All right, so we have a motion and a second. All those in favor of the recommendation to the board, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Great, thank you very much. All right. Item number 7. Maintenance and public transportation contracts. Gail.
The city of Colorado Springs. The city is bringing 8 contracts for your consideration today. The first one is for the Academy Boulevard project, more for the south segment. This is for engineering services during construction. There is a map for this project location in your packet, and this is an A-list project. Just as a reminder, the city went through a request for proposal process in 2021 for these services. We had 5 respondents. AECom was found to be the most responsive. They've been doing work for us, and this is to add engineering services during construction for that south phase. Up to this point, that had not been included. The amount for the change order is $248,575. City's second contract is the Gallic Road Bridge Replacement Project. This is an A-list project. There's a map included in your package. This is for the construction contract for the bridge replacement and a water line replacement in conjunction with Colorado Springs Utilities. Went through an invitation for bid. We had 4 respondents. K.R. Schwartberger was the low bidder. The total cost of the contract is $5,276,576. Of that portion, $3,624,043 was PPRTA, and the rest would be paid by Colorado Springs Utilities. City's third contract is for the Circle Bride Bridge Replacement Project. This is also an A-list project. The images included in this packet are really more showing the easements that we're talking about. But this is really, the city is finally, after working with both railroads for a long time, entering a 3-party construction and maintenance agreement that will set in perpetuity on how construction will happen with these bridges that go over the railroads and the longer term maintenance responsibilities. As part of this, it does identify both temporary and permanent construction easements, and paying those out. That's a total of $355,224.25. And the breakdown by type of easement into which railroad is included in your packet on page 2 of that memorandum.
Gail, I got just a question or clarification.
Yes.
On the second map, on the left-hand side of whichever road that is, East Las Vegas, I guess it is. There's a temporary construction area. And it's running under both structures, it looks like. Is that to accommodate the temporary bridges that you're going to build before you replace the main structures?
Jim, we have a bonus today to have the project manager of that. He can answer that question way better than myself. So I'm going to pass this image to Ryan Phipps and have him answer that question for you.
You see what I'm say that area I'm talking about, Ron?
Ryan Phipps, engineering. Please state your question, whether it's or the BNSF. I'm looking at BNSF's image on the screen. Is that the same one that you're looking at?
Yes. And it's the left-hand red box and then the arrow point says temporary construction area.
Yep. So that's the whole area that we need in order to demolish the existing structures, install the new ones, and then once the project's complete, the temporary easement expires, and then we retain the permanent easements where the new structures are.
Okay. All right. It went perpendicular to the bridges, and I was thinking maybe the temporary construction would be under the bridges, but so anyway, thank you, I appreciate it.
Mr. Chair, just a quick question will rise here. In the last quarterly report, it looks like construction could start is maybe this month. Is that still on schedule or are we delayed?
Nope, that's still the case. We had a meeting yesterday actually, and really we're waiting for the creek levels to be at a certain point, and we're planning on seeing construction activities. I mean, the first 4 to 6 weeks won't be very interesting to the general public, but for us, we're very excited about starting construction here. And
We'll start seeing some surveyors out there flagging operations, trucks.
you'll
So
see the cones and things like that. And then as a reminder, this project, we're building our first pair of new bridges alongside the existing sets. So we're able to build the new structures without impacting the 4 lanes of existing traffic on Circle, and we'll phase traffic as such to keep those 4 lanes of traffic moving at all time.
I'm looking forward to it. Thank you.
And while we're talking about Circle Drive Bridge, before I jump back in, one of the things we're looking to do, we're not doing a groundbreaking for this project, but we are looking at doing some kind of ribbon cutting on the first new bridge as it goes over, kind of mid-project celebration. So stay tuned for that. Hopefully maybe a year from now, Ryan,
Sure.
give or take.
Yeah.
So look forward to that. We'll pick the coldest day of the year and have it then. All right. Thanks, Ryan. I'm going to move on to the city's 4th contract. This is for traffic controllers, cabinets, and radar systems for traffic maintenance activities. City went through a request for proposal process. We had 3 respondents. Echoline Control Products was selected. This will be for the base year contract for $200,000. We'll be using the citywide congestion and incident management program for this activity. This contract, this is for the base year, as I mentioned. There will be 4 option years available underneath this contract in the future, subject to funding availability. Contract number 5 is for school flashers and cameras. The city went through an RFP process for these as well. We did only have 1 respondent for that AM signals, but it still was found to be in the city's best interest to continue to put this contract in place for these materials, so we can purchase them, get them in school crossing zones. We were allocating $200,000 for this first year, and there are 4 option years with that contract as well. The city's 6th contract is for the PPRTA program and bridge asset management services. The city went through an RFP process at the end of 2022 and selected Ellis Gallegos of the 3 respondents. This is the first option year for that contract, and they provide services both for capital projects and for maintenance activities. Our estimated cost for 2024 service is $3,635,725. Contract number 7 is renewal of contracts, either on-call contracts or contracts that had option years. In accordance, there is actually a list attached that's 2.5 pages long of contracts that we're going through renewal. Most of them, this is their 2nd option year renewal. Some of them are slightly out of cycle, but it helps us with on-call services. Any contracts or task orders would be issued would be done so under policy 30. And the city's 8th contract, again, I think I brought a transit contract last month as well. You don't normally see transit contracts. But we wanted to bring this forward to you, 1, because with the bus purchase and one of the policies, we need to come in and inform the CAC and the board that we're doing this. But 2, there is a potential that PPRTA capital dollars under PPRTA 3 will be included in this. So normally the local match or portion of this cost would happen under operating costs, which you don't normally necessarily see all those contracts. But I will let you know that the city went through an RFP process with with a lot of requirements. It's 250 pages of requirements on the buses and things that have to be provided on this. They ended up getting 4 respondents. Our request was asking for options both in length, varying lengths, but also battery electric buses, hybrid buses, and diesel buses. And really only the Gillig contract was going to provide us the flexibility that we were seeking underneath this longer term purchase contract. So what we were intending to do is this contract is also put in place to purchase up to 50 buses over a 5-year period of time. This first contract, we're in the final value is to be determined, but we do have set prices for the buses. It's really more the configuration that we could get delivered. But we do have individual unit prices by bus type and size and how they would be provided. I will just mention that 50 at the lowest price level would make the overall contract value 31.5 million. And if we were looking at a local match, which most often is really what PPRTA covers, because we really try to use fare box revenue or grants to pay for most of our buses, the local match of that amount would end up being $6.3 million. If we use the most expensive bus, the total contract would be for the base year would be the $53.9 million with a local match of $10.8 million, just to kind of give you an idea, order of magnitude, what we're looking at for this particular contract. But this is really just to put this base contract in place and know that we're going to be purchasing buses underneath this item. Any questions on
You said
this?
50 buses over how many years?
We could purchase up to 50 buses over a 5-year period.
5 years.
This is the base year contract with 4 option years.
So is Gillig just going to act as your broker? Because all these buses aren't made by the same people.
These are all made by Gillig.
Oh, really?
We use other contract mechanisms for other bus types. So for example, you may have heard the city got a federal grant for they refer to it as a low or no emission vehicles. We'll be purchasing 6 hybrid buses with those. We'll be using New Flyer as one of the vendors for those. And then I believe we're also getting 6 Gillig hybrids for there. And really to truly do our full pilot in the hybrid buses. Our first pilot with battery electric buses didn't go so great. I think we reported that out a couple months ago. So we really want to we feel like hybrid might be a better solution for us in the future, but we want to take it slow and use that as an option for our next pilot. So just to give an example, we do use other vendors.
Okay. Carlos?
Yeah, we just quickly went over the Econolite contract. I know it's a small contract there, but the Evo radar, the Econolite Evo radar, are we using any radar technology today in our street traffic operations, or is this new to the city using radar?
I believe that we do, but I couldn't answer that for you definitively, Carlos. I could have had Todd speak with you more directly about that, but I believe that we do. I know we've been looking at integrating some more sophisticated technology.
Yeah, I was looking it up. One of the more sophisticated technologies is to be able to detect bicyclists at the intersection. That's one of the complaints you hear, is that bicyclists are behind the stop bar, and they are waiting and the optical sensors cannot detect them. And so
you're absolutely right. And in fact, again, not related specifically to this purchase, but the city did receive a SMART grant, also another federal discretionary grant. And the purpose of that grant is to install that perception-based technology. So if you have a cyclist or if you have a slower pedestrian that needs extra time to cross the intersection, or if you have vehicles not coming in one of the directions, that it can more appropriately adjust the timing on the signals. So that's really our pilot to get those, but we'll be installing those at 50 intersections.
no, this is worth a press release. Talk to your communications group. I think if we're doing these innovative things, let's tell the public. And
we did do one.
You did one, this particular one on the radar.
The SMART grant.
I'm talking about the radar
Yeah.
technology. Yeah.
Yeah, we're really more focused on, this is just a component for that bigger picture plan. You will hear that we did get another discretionary grant. Press release will coming out for Safe Streets for All, which will be part of the safety action plan. And all those things are intended to work together to help improve safety and some of that perception-based mobility throughout the city.
Thank you.
Dave?
I just wanted to add to Carlos's question. A month ago, I apologize, I was not here for the meeting last month. I was actually having a tour of the Amsterdam Traffic Operations Center. And much to my surprise, the Dutch have done so much with artificial intelligence and detection. And bottom line is, I was shocked in a bit that there was so much cycling going on in Amsterdam. They've given up on radar completely, and they're back to induction loops. That even with the high composite content of the fanciest, $20,000 bicycles, that there's still enough metal in those where the induction loop is still the best detection technology for them. I would also offer, I was in a meeting earlier today, there's a little competition between City of Boulder and City of Lone Tree for the first Colorado's first fully protected intersection. Boulder actually opened theirs up sooner, but Lone Tree thinks they have the bragging rights over it. It doesn't matter. I guess the point is that as we've talked before about mobility centers and some of the latest trends and technologies that's out there, the point I wanted to make there is the Dutch have ripped out hundreds, maybe, I don't know, thousands of roundabouts, and they still love them. There's still tens of thousands of roundabouts there, but we're seeing now a trend where they're taking out roundabouts in favor of fully protected intersections. So if you haven't heard that term yet, coming soon to a presentation, I presume, near you. But Lone Tree and Boulder are thumb wrestling over who has the first one in Colorado. The Dutch been doing it for a decade now. So just FYI on fully protected intersections. We don't have any in town that I know of, but maybe at some point we can look at exploring those as well.
Yeah, Todd gave a real good presentation during Citizens College or the Public Works thing on some of the technology they're bringing into the signals. And I think radar was one of them, but if I remember right. But anyway, Brandy?
I just want to point out that the renewal contracts are on here, so I'll be recusing myself, and since someone retired, he doesn't have to.
Okay. All right. Any other questions on the city's contracts?
Yes, Jim,
Yes, sir.
this is Craig. Yes, I have to recuse myself as well, for the same reason.
Okay, thank you.
Hey, Jim, it's Karen Asplin. I also have to recuse myself.
Okay. Karen, Craig, and Brandy. Yeah. All right. So if there's not any more questions, do I have a motion to accept the city's contracts?
This is Emily Magnuson, so moved.
Thank you, Emily. Second,
David.
Dave, thank you. All right, all those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, very good. Thank you.
Done for Emily, since I'm sorry, Emily, I don't keep up. You still work for Kimley Horn, yes?
Oh, I do, yes.
So you should also, your name's on the list.
On which contract?
Yeah, on the contract renewal list,
Ouch.
the on-call for the city of Colorado Springs.
Oh, I apologize.
You
to the-
probably should be the one making the motion.
Agreed. No, can we redo this? I'm sorry for that.
That's
We
okay.
probably need to, that's a good.
Yeah,
question.
so let's.
I'll turn it back over to you, Jim, to call for it.
Okay, so let's call for another motion, given the other, and when Rick, you've got all the names? Okay, so do I have another motion to accept the city's contracts? Rick Hoover, okay, do I have a second?
And again, I'll second again.
Dave will second. Okay, so again, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, all right,
And abstentions are noted on this one.
yes. Rick's got them.
Okay. Good catch, Brandon.
All righty. Who wants to head off this policy 31 discussion?
Jim, I think that will be me, Gail Serta with the City of Colorado Springs. So what you have before you is a packet to consider a project underneath policy 31. So just as a bit of a reminder, back in July of 2022, and in accordance with policy 31, this PPRTA board agreed to act as the serving as the applicant on the city's behalf for 3 state-funded grant projects. They were all underneath the Multimodal and Mitigation Opportunity Fund, or MMOF grant program. For those of you who weren't here at that time, this was really put in place because there was these these state-funded grants that were out there, but many of the jurisdictions were not able to go and get them because of the Tabor implications, or that they had local match issues. So policy 31 was really meant to be put in place where PPRTA gets to act as an agent to receive those funds on the local government's behalf. Right now in 2020, well, in in 22, so when we put this in place. And through the end of 24, the city of Colorado Springs is really the only member of PPRTA that's eligible to apply for these grants right now. In the future years after 25, when PPRTA 3 is in place, many of the other local governments have programs where they could come and go and do this and leverage this to go and get grants in the future. Anyway, long story short, the city went through and did this, PPRTA agreed to do this. Now, as part of that grant process, the next step is we have to enter into an intergovernmental agreement with CDOT to administer those funds. They send the funds, but they really act as a reimbursement for them. So we have to go through this intergovernmental agreement. Under policy 31, the city is responsible for incurring the work and any costs that may be incurred for doing this activity. So we intend to, our legal is doing a review, our grant administrator will miss the reimbursements, work with Lisa and make sure that basically that money goes in and out through PPRTA for the reimbursement. One of the things that will happen, we've talked about that we contemplated, but we didn't have it as a specific item when I did the policy, is that PPRTA's attorney will take a look at the IGA as well, in conjunction with the city attorney's office. The attorneys are both still looking at those. Generally, these grant agreements are pretty standard. I mean, they're a template that they normally use for them. So we don't normally have issues or problems. We've spent some time on this one though, because PPRTA is the applicant on the city's behalf in this area. So what we're bringing for you today is I do have a copy of the original grant application and the memo that was approved back in July of 22, along with a draft of the intergovernmental agreement for your consideration. You can see there are some red lines that are on this draft that we're working on finalizing. There are at least 2 areas where the original author of this draft used used agency instead of authority for PPRTA. So we will maybe making those corrections. Underneath this IGA, this PPRTA on the city's behalf will be receiving $853,000. The local match to go along with this would be from the city's on-street bike program. So the total grant value is for $1,906,000. This particular project is for the 3 trail crossings, is what we've been calling it. It covers the Homestead Trail Crossing at Dublin, the Woodman Trail Crossing at Rangewood Road, and the Skyline Trail Crossing at Mirage Road. There are 2 other awards that happen at the same time, but we are not bringing those forward today. Just this one for the 3 trail crossings. So what we were really asking for the CAC's consideration would be a recommendation to the board for conditional approval of the IGA based on the outcome of the PPRTA legal review, and also request that the board approve a budget allocation of $853,000 in MMOF funds to the city's PPRTA on-street bike improvement program upon execution of the IGA. One other thing we would have as a discussion, because CDOT right now circulates these agreements or IGAs for signature only through DocuSign, at least bringing up for the board's consideration whether they wanted to delegate the signature authority to Rick Sonnenberg as the board chair, or if they wanted to have it go to the board chair directly. So that will be a discussion item as well. But really what we would be looking for would be the CAC's recommendation to the board on consideration of the draft and the process moving forward. So that's a lot of information. I'd be happy to answer questions related to this.
Any questions from anyone? I've got some if once you, Randy.
I think I have more of a question for Rick than anything. There were a lot of caveats with what Gil was saying. Is there a specific motion that needs to be made in a specific way to catch all of those? Because there's a lot of what ifs at this stage. Or, I mean, I don't know if we can just approve it as presented, or if you wanted something more specific. You want that, exactly.
Right. Let me give an overview of the 2 process options, and then I'll answer Brandy's question. The 2 options for the CAC today because Gail has told me that this is not time sensitive. So option one is to proceed, approve it contingent upon the city attorney's office review and Jennifer Ivy's review and the other conditions. The other option is to wait a month until the 2 legal reviews have occurred. So I can argue either side. It's glass full, half full, or half empty. You've heard Gail's request, which is to proceed with conditions and only bring it back if either of the 2 legal reviews uncover any significant problems. Now back to Brandy's question. I think Gail might help me summarize. There's 3 conditions. One is the motion would be, if you do want to proceed today instead of waiting a month, is for the CAC to approve a positive recommendation to the board to approve the draft subject to 3 items. Number 1, the city attorney's legal review. I guess it's 4 items. City attorney's office legal review. Number 2, the PPRTA board's attorney legal review, allocating the $853,000 of the grant money to the accounts of the 3 trail projects, and 4, making a recommendation to the board as to who would be the electronic signatory, either the board chair or myself.
And can I add
Sure.
one of the other things on that too? Once Rick is right, it is not time sensitive today, but it could be time sensitive when CDOT starts circulating and that's when it becomes more time sensitive, when they start going through that process. So I think it would be good for us to come up with some mechanism so we do have some pre-approval, knowing we're towards those end stages. And if you did, so that was one. Second thing I wanted to point out, that if you were comfortable moving forward with this recommendation based on the conditions, I would make a commitment that we would have some kind of report out on this in the future as we go through the execution of this IGA. The way the awards are right now, we could potentially have 3 of them active at one time. But this is the kind of the first part of really putting this process that was contemplated under policy 31 in action. So just wanted to add those on.
Okay. When I look at the IGAs between agencies to the RTA, we've had some in recent years or recently, but it's kind of an abnormal. And I've always looked at it from a thing of a risk to the RTA. Is there some kind of constraint or something in there that's going to cause risk to the RTA? So I always look for that. I commend you on your very successful job of seeking and getting grant monies. You've done a great job over the last couple of years of really getting some big grant money, and then this kind of money helps out. A question on the 853,000 is that as part of the city's allocation, or is that it's not an A-list project, but where does that go, or what, under what category?
It would go in the on-street bike program, which is an A-list program listed on the ballot.
Okay. All right. Got it. Understand. Okay. So we've heard the restrictions, and may I repeat them to make sure that I've got them right? We can approve with a positive recommendation to review this draft for the board to approve this, pending the city attorney's review, the RTA board's attorney review, the allocation of the 853,000, and then the option on who's going to sign the electronic document. Are those the conditions? Did I state those correctly? Okay. All right. So do I have a motion to the effect to accept this request by the city?
Can I ask a quick question?
Sure.
Does anybody have any thoughts on the signatory? Whether it would be the chair or Rick? I think that was a time sensitive issue. Correct?
The answer is it's a suggestion that the board may choose to do, because once it starts circulating through that DocuSign system, it does become time sensitive. So if the board chair wants to do it, the board chair needs to be available and on the board. And it is done electronically. You can frankly do it from anywhere, but not everyone's as comfortable doing that. And sometimes they have other people managing their accounts, helping with those kinds of things. Or they could consider delegating that authority to the board secretary.
This is Cindy. Can I comment that once it's approved by the board, I think designating someone else to sign is really doesn't really matter. It's the approval that matters. We do that here because you know, in small towns, my mayor isn't always available, so they delegate that. I don't see an issue with it.
I don't see an issue with it.
That's exactly my comments too. Once the board makes the determination that they want to enter into this IGA, they just need to delegate it to the appropriate signatory, which I would recommend Rick to do that rather than, like one of our city councilmen, this is your focus. This is your focus area. And I can certainly see that. Having dealt with the state of Colorado and their DocuSign process, it's very smooth. It goes very quickly. So I have no concerns.
Okay. That answer your question?
Sort of.
So you have an issue. Is that what you're saying?
I think if I were on the board, I think the board can make that decision. I don't really have a recommendation for them. I think when it gets to the board level, Gail will probably know more than she does now. And at that point in time, if it's super time sensitive, the board can make the decision to appoint Rick. But I personally don't have a recommendation for the board.
Okay.
So I would have the three pieces that it's pending the legal review of PPRTA, pending the legal review of the city of Colorado Springs, and that they allocate the 853,000, and then they can figure out how to sign it when it gets there. That's not an official motion. That's just what I have written down.
Okay.
But I can make it a motion if everybody's ready.
Make it.
I move approval of item 7B of the draft of review of the draft IGA and sending it to the board once it's made it through PPRTA legal review, City of Colorado Springs legal review, to allocate the $853,000 when the timing is appropriate. And that when it gets to the board will determine what is the most expeditious way to get this signed.
Yeah, do we have a second?
Carl Springs, I go ahead and second that. Just background, these are trails in my neighborhood. I use them a lot, and I am well aware of the safety issues around these, especially around the schools we're going to be taking care of this. So I second the motion.
Okay, thank you. Any further discussion? Seeing no hands, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Not seeing or hearing, and motion carries. Thank you. And again, congratulations on winning the grant. All right. Item 8A. City Colorado Springs Transit. Good afternoon.
Chair, Line Rail Transit Services Division Manager. In your packet is our November report with September information. We carried 253,009 trips in the month of September. This, unfortunately, is not the ridership that we saw in July and August when we set the record high. The ridership is back to more of the not zero fare normal. However, year to date, we are trending 90% compared to pre-COVID. We're still doing better compared to last year. At the same time last year, we were looking at 67% of the ridership year to date. The trend is good. We're not there. There's more that we need to do. Also in your packet are two highlights for transit. One is the ZEP, the Downtown Shuttle report. We have received some recent inquiries of how is the shuttle doing. It's been about a year. Are people using them? Is the service working? So we included some information and charts in this month report. I'll just bring your attention to the ridership. with those bar charts. The lighter color is when we first implemented the downtown shuttle service in 2022. We started the service May 22nd, 2022, and the ridership has been increasing steadily. However, the darker color for 2023, you will see starting in May, June, we saw some ridership decrease. We don't know for sure the reason behind the ridership decrease, but due to the nature of fixed route service, we don't have the rider information, origin destination information. However, we listed some potential contributing factors listed in your packet right above that table. One of them is because of our vehicle shortage situation that we're forced to use those smaller vehicles. Number one, they don't have the right branding outside and people didn't recognize them. We are working on wrapping them, repainting them with the matching color as the ZEP. So we're working about the wayfinding. Also, those smaller buses are retired Metro Mobility vehicles that do not have all the equipment inside, such as firebox, tracking ridership, such as the GPS system, such as a lot of other things that we do have inside the fixed route bus. So to a degree, the drivers are doing their best to track the ridership, but chances are some might not be have been captured. Fare-free summer months could be another reason. Passengers have more free options during the summer. Instead of just the downtown core, instead of riding the free shuttle, they had other options. They had 10, 11, 4, some other routes that were also free. So that could also be a contributing factor. And also because of the vehicle challenge, we were forced to reduce some of the frequency in those summer months. So we listed some of those reasons. And also this is really the first full year that we're looking at. We don't have a comparison for during the same months last year. The information is limited. We don't know if this is going to be a seasonal trend. So those are the things that we're monitoring, but we thought we'll come back to the CAC and board to present, to include this information. Also on the second page, here's the silver lining. We initially started the service based on the consultant recommendation with 5 vehicles running 7-minute service during the peak hours. And we noticed some bunching up. Vehicles were running right next to each other. So in our spring service change, we reduced that 5 vehicle to 4 while maintaining the same frequency. So this chart shows you basically the efficiency side of this operation. The blue dots are the passenger boardings trips per hour in 2022. And since May, you see that jump in May, a little lower in June, but it's pretty steadily increasing this year. That means more people are riding within that same revenue service hours. So we'll continue to monitor the performance of the service and report back maybe from time to time. We also included a 2050 regional transit plan here. We are working with PPACG very closely. You probably already heard a lot from PPACG about the update. We are very excited that we were able to kick off this process for transit. I do have 2 more items from previous CAC meetings. One question came up, I believe, last month about whether or not we could carry e-bikes inside those cutaway smaller vehicles. I did look into that. Currently, we do allow foldable bikes as long as you can stow away. It's not in the way of passenger boarding. We do allow that. Also, rider survey, there was a request to present the rider survey information. We still don't have the final report. There are some statistical information back and forth that we're working with the consultants on. So we're looking at possibly early next year for that presentation. That wraps up my report.
Great job. Great job on the statistics. I really like the flow now and showing more data and things that are happening. So you've done a great job of modifying the brief. It's very informative. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions? All right, great. Thank you very much, Lynn. 8B, monthly change order and acquisition report. It's in your packet, information only. Anybody see anything they want to talk about or ask questions about? Also, the county has one in here for the same thing. Any questions? Not seeing any hands. Okay, very good. Moving right along. Item 9A, report of recent board actions. Mr. Rick.
Memos in your packet. Any questions? I guess the two highlights are that the board's consulting attorney was renewed for another year, and the board's consulting lobbyist, state legislature lobbyist, was renewed for calendar 2024 as well.
All right. Any questions, anybody online? All right. 9B. The appointment, reappointment process for a Citizens Advisory Committee.
Of the CAC members from the member governments, I have received number 3 on your list there, Craig Gooding's reappointment by the town of Green Mountain Falls. Waiting to hear on the other member governments terms. Of the at-large and at-large alternates, the board subcommittee per board policy is meeting Friday of this week at 1:30 to review the requests. Ed Dills, Rick Hoover, Emily, Tony, Rich all have requested reappointment, and those will be presented to the board subcommittee on Friday 1:30, and we'll see what their action is. We'll let you know. So this is just an information item, just a reminder. Any questions?
Just a comment Rick had asked earlier about I'm not anticipating that we need to have any of the people at the meeting on Friday, the subcommittee meeting on Friday. If I don't get what I want to get done, it may have to come back next month or have another meeting, but I don't see any need for anybody to come down and be part of that process at this point. Hope it goes smoothly. All right. Any agenda items for next meeting? Anybody got any burning issues? Anybody online? Okay. Communications, anybody got any announcements they need to make? All right.
I just want to remind you, county, that Richard will be watching.
Yes.
Could you repeat that for those of us online in a microphone?
Oh, turn your mic.
I'm sorry, I just wanted to remind El Paso County that Richard will be watching the progress of 105.
As he should. All right, if there's not anything else at this point in time, we'll call the meeting adjourned. Thank everyone for their time and participation. Good meeting.